That's a big request. I'll start with a solid opening and continue building until the section is fully developed. Here's the beginning. The jungle pulsed with life, a constant whisper of unseen creatures slithering through undergrowth, leaves rustling with something more than the wind. It had taken weeks for Logan to adjust to the planet's rhythms, but now he moved through its depths like a phantom, silent, purposeful. His traps, crude but effective, had kept him alive. That was all that mattered. Tonight he waited. A makeshift snare hung between the thick trunks of two towering trees, their bark slick with moisture. The bait, a lump of dried meat, dangled just above the jungle floor. It wasn't much, but it had worked before. Logan crouched behind a fallen log, gripping the handle of his knife, muscles tensed. A rustle, then stillness. He had learned patience in the military, learned how to sit unmoving until the moment struck like a blade. The night deepened. His fingers ached from gripping the hilt too tightly. He exhaled slowly, forcing his grip to loosen. Then the snare snapped. A strangled sound, something between a snarl and a gasp, tore through the night. Logan surged forward, knife raised, expecting to find a thrashing animal. Maybe one of the reptilian hunters that prowled this world. Instead, he stopped cold. Suspended in the trap, tangled in the woven cords, was not an animal. Not exactly. She was humanoid, but different in ways that sent a prickle down his spine. Her skin shimmered like dark metal, sleek and segmented. Her limbs long and sinewy. Spikes jutted from her arms, though they looked more like natural armor than weapons. Her face was obscured by an intricate, biomechanical mask, its dark eye sockets glowing faintly. Logan tightened his grip on the knife. She thrashed, twisting in the net, her movements fluid and controlled despite her predicament. A low, clicking growl emerged from her throat. Not human. Definitely not human. His first instinct was to cut her down, to examine, interrogate, maybe even kill if she posed a threat. But he hesitated. The intelligence in her gaze was undeniable. She wasn't a mindless beast. She was aware. She froze, watching him. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her breathing uneven. Logan took a step closer, and she flinched. That reaction alone told him something important. She thought he was the threat. Slowly, he lowered his knife. She blinked. Then, in a sudden, sharp motion, she bared her teeth. Not quite human, not quite fanged, something in between. A warning. Logan crouched, keeping his movements deliberate. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was low, calm. It was a lie in a way he wasn't sure yet what he would do. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Her breathing steadied, but the tension in her body remained. She tugged against the net experimentally, testing its strength. He could see the calculations running through her mind. Logan exhaled. He had caught something far more dangerous than a meal. Logan spent the first hour watching her. He had freed her from the snare, but only partially, enough to let her move, not enough to let her attack. She sat against the base of a massive root, wrists still bound, eyes locked onto him like a predator measuring distance to its prey. He could see her mind working, analyzing, waiting for the moment to strike or flee. He understood that instinct well. He had felt it himself when he first crashed on this planet, surrounded by the unknown, every shadow a potential threat. The difference was that he had learned to push past it. She had not. The fire crackled between them, casting flickering light across her metallic skin. In the dim glow, Logan could see finer details, scars etched into her armor-like plating, hair braided back in precise knots, a deep cut along her side where the snare had caught her wrong. Not invincible, then. He placed a strip of dried meat between them. She tensed. He gestured, slow and careful. "Food," he said. "Eat." She didn't move. He expected that. So he took a piece for himself, biting off a chunk and chewing with exaggerated ease. Then he leaned back, stretching out, making himself look as unthreatening as possible. It was a gamble. If she was waiting for a moment of weakness, this was it. But if she was waiting for proof of his intentions, then this was also it. Her gaze flicked from him to the food. A pause. Then, In a motion too fast for him to track, she snatched it up and retreated into herself, biting down cautiously. Progress. The next few days followed a rhythm. He loosened her bindings little by little, letting her prove she wouldn't attack. She didn't speak, at least not in words he could understand. But she made sounds. Clicks, hisses, guttural tones that carried layers of meaning he was just beginning to decipher. He learned her moods through body language. The slight tilt of her head when she was curious. The way her shoulders bunched before she decided something was a threat. She was watching him as much as he was watching her, cataloging his movements, his habits, his weaknesses. The moment came on the fourth night. Logan sat by the fire, working on a snare, when she reached for his knife. Not with aggression, not to stab him, to help. He froze as she turned the blade in her hands, inspecting its edge with expert precision. Then, with a few careful motions, she adjusted the tension in the snare he had been struggling with, her fingers moving with practiced ease. She glanced at him once, a flicker of something unreadable in her glowing eyes, then handed the knife back. Not an enemy, not a prisoner either. That night, Logan slept without binding her wrists. When he woke, she was still there. Logan sensed the change before he saw it. The jungle had its own rhythm, a constant backdrop of rustling leaves, distant calls, the hum of unseen predators. Tonight, that rhythm was broken. The silence was too deep. The air felt charged. He wasn't the only one who noticed. She crouched low beside him, muscles coiled, her head tilted, listening, eyes scanning the shadows beyond their fire's glow. She didn't need to speak for him to understand. Something was coming. Logan reached for his rifle. He had few rounds left, but if whatever was out there thought they were easy prey, he would make them regret it. He motioned for her to stay back, but she didn't. Instead, she shifted into a defensive stance, her body tense, hands flexing. She was ready to fight. A flicker of movement between the trees. Then another. Shapes gliding through the foliage, too precise, too disciplined. Not animals. Logan cursed under his breath. He knew this formation. This was human. A beam of artificial light sliced through the darkness, sweeping the jungle floor. A voice crackled over a speaker, distant but sharp. Survivor identified. Stand down. Logan didn't move. He knew better. The moment he stepped forward, they would decide his fate for him. She pressed closer, her breath steady but watchful. He felt her gaze on him, waiting for his choice. He had one. Run. Or fight. He should have run. Instead, he raised his weapon and fired. The shot split the silence, and then the jungle erupted. Figures darted forward. Shouts rang out. Gunfire flared. Logan moved on instinct, diving for cover, rolling into position. She was already ahead of him, launching herself into the fray with a speed that defied logic. He saw the glint of her claws, the flicker of blue light in her eyes as she tore through the first soldier, moving with lethal precision. But they were outnumbered. A stun round struck Logan in the ribs, knocking the air from his lungs. He hit the ground hard, vision swimming. Boots pounded toward him. He fought to rise, but the world tilted, his limbs refusing to obey. Through the haze, he saw her standing over him, breathing hard. She looked down at him, then at the approaching soldiers. For the first time since he had found her, he saw hesitation in her eyes. She could leave. She could disappear into the jungle and never look back. Instead, she turned to face them. A final snarl, a defiant cry, and then she was moving again. Faster than they expected, deadlier than they could handle. She fought like something untamed, weaving between gunfire, striking with precision. And then silence. Logan forced himself upright, chest heaving. The soldiers lay scattered, some unconscious, some worse. She stood at the center, shoulders rising and falling, her glowing eyes locked onto him. No words were needed. She had made her choice. So had he. He reached out. She took his hand. And together, they vanished into the jungle. The jungle swallowed them whole. Logan stumbled as he ran, breath ragged, limbs heavy with adrenaline and pain. Each heartbeat thudded like a war drum in his chest, his muscles screaming in protest with every step. Branches clawed at his arms and face, the ground slick beneath his boots. But she kept pace beside him, silent, fluid, unyielding. Her presence was no longer unfamiliar. It was comfort in chaos. They didn't speak. There was no need. Survival had a language of its own. Hours passed, or maybe it was just minutes, distorted by exhaustion and fear, before they slowed. They reached a steep incline where moss-covered stones jutted like ancient teeth from the earth. She climbed first, testing the edges, then offered her hand to him. He took it without hesitation. At the summit, the jungle opened into a narrow ravine. Mist clung to the rocks, thin waterfalls whispering down the sides. Logan collapsed near a fallen trunk, chest heaving, sweat soaking his collar. She crouched beside him, her glowing eyes scanning the trees, ever watchful. "What the hell were they doing here?" he muttered half to himself. "How'd they even know I was alive?" She tilted her head. Though she couldn't understand his words, she recognized the tone. Confusion, anger, fear knotted together. Logan reached into his jacket and pulled out the small black chip he'd pried from the side of the transport wreck weeks ago. It had blinked twice since the crash. He thought it was just a beacon gone dead. Now he knew better. "They tracked me," he said bitterly. "Used me as bait." Her eyes narrowed. She understood that. The betrayal, the cruelty. It wasn't so different from her own people, from the cage she'd escaped before the jungle, before him. He let the chip fall into the mud. It sank without resistance. Silence settled again. Not the empty kind, something fuller, heavier. An understanding forged in battle, in choices made under fire. She stood, stepping away from him, walking toward the water's edge. The light played across her skin, reflecting off the hard curves of her armor. The scars etched deep in her frame. Logan followed, slower, dragging his feet through the wet grass. He watched as she raised her hand, fingers splayed toward the sky. A faint hum vibrated in the air, low, organic, almost like singing. The waterfall behind her shimmered briefly, and then faded back to stillness. A test? A call? He took a cautious step forward. "What are you doing?" She turned. Her face, what he could see of it beneath the ridged plating, was unreadable. And then, for the first time, she spoke. "Others come." The words were halting, rough. The syllables bent strangely in her mouth, but the meaning was clear. Logan blinked. You speak English?" She didn't answer, just looked past him into the trees. And that's when he heard it. Not the soldiers, not the stomp of boots or the hiss of rifles. This was something else. Low, rhythmic thuds like massive wings beating in sync. Leaves shook from the trees. Birds scattered into the sky. Logan raised his rifle again, though the gesture felt hollow. She stepped beside him, closer than before. "Not yours. What is it?" "My kind," she said softly. "But not mine." It didn't make sense, not completely. But Logan understood enough. Whatever was coming, alien, maybe a rescue party, maybe something worse, it wasn't here for a reunion. And it wasn't going to care that Logan had helped her, or that she'd saved him. The thudding grew louder. The mist curled tighter. Then, the air above the ravine tore open. A vessel descended, black and organic, shaped like a predator's talon. No visible engines, no flashing lights, just sleek, silent menace. It hovered for a moment, then dropped a spine-like ramp into the soil. Figures emerged, tall, armored like her, but broader, heavier. Their weapons were fused into their limbs, glowing with violet energy. No hesitation, no humanity. The lead one spoke in a language Logan couldn't parse, full of growls and staccato clicks. She didn't respond. Logan could feel the tension between them, stretching taut. She took a step forward. He grabbed her arm. "Don't." "I must," she said. "They're not here to save you." "I know." The lead alien raised its weapon. Logan raised his rifle, aiming center mass. It would do nothing. He knew it. She knew it. But it was instinct. She stepped in front of him. "I go," she said quietly. But I come back. That's not how this works. You go with them. They won't let you come back. A pause. Then she did something unexpected. She pulled off the faceplate of her helmet. Logan saw her for the first time. Truly saw her. Her face was fierce, alien and beautiful in a way that defied symmetry. Her eyes, now unfiltered, burned with a strange light. Intelligence, sadness, resolve. Her mouth curved ever so slightly. Not a smile. Something older, deeper. Then stay, she said. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and in that breath the world changed. She turned and walked toward them. No weapons, no resistance. The aliens watched her, then parted. She stepped into their midst, vanished into their ranks. Logan watched the ship rise, the jungle stirring beneath its lift. The mist swallowed it whole, until only silence remained. He stood there for a long time, rifle hanging at his side. Then he turned back toward the jungle, and began walking. Logan could no longer measure it in days. The jungle had a way of eroding the clock, turning hours into blurs of motion and silence. He didn't know how long it had been since she left, since she walked willingly into the maw of something that didn't deserve her trust. He remembered her last words. Then stay. But he hadn't. He couldn't. He had survived by moving, by staying ahead of the next threat. But now he stayed. Not in the same place, not in the clearing or the ravine, but in the vicinity. The ship was gone. No sign of a landing zone. No scorched earth. No broken branches. They had taken her like smoke, leaving nothing but the memory of her footprints. He retraced them 100 times, boots treading the same ground until it compacted under his weight. And still he stayed. He built a new shelter higher in the trees this time. Safer. He set traps, but not for game. For warnings. He knew better than to hope for a rescue party. If Command had cared, they'd have come months ago. And after what he did to that recon unit, there was no going back. But he wasn't waiting for them. He was waiting for her. And eventually she came back. It was subtle at first. A shift in the wind. The feeling of being watched. Logan didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon. If it was her, she would reveal herself. If it wasn't, well, then maybe it was finally over. But it was her. She dropped from the canopy above like a shadow unspooling. No sound, no threat, just presence. Logan didn't stand. He met her gaze from where he sat near the fire, letting the tension bleed out of his posture. Her armor had changed, sleeker, darker, marked with symbols he didn't recognize. And her eyes, they were brighter, wiser. "You came back," he said. "I said I would," she replied, her voice clearer now, though still carrying that layered accent. She crouched beside the fire. "You stayed." Logan nodded. "I wasn't sure if that was hope or stupidity." "Both," she said. And for the first time he thought she might be smiling. He studied her more closely. There were new lines across her shoulders, thinner scars along her neck. Signs of conflict. Signs of survival. "Was it them?" he asked. Her gaze darkened. "They are not mine." He waited. She didn't elaborate. Instead, she reached into a pouch on her side and pulled out a shard, metallic, irregular, etched with alien script. She placed it in his hand. It was warm. "What is it?" "Proof," she said, "of what I did." Logan turned it over. "To them?" She nodded. "They came for me, not for rescue, for punishment, for leaving, for choosing you." He looked up at her, heart caught somewhere between guilt and something deeper, unspoken. "So what now?" "I ran," she said, again, "but not alone this time." He blinked. "There are others?" "Yes, like me, not loyal, not blind." A long silence followed. The jungle moved around them, birds singing their indifferent tunes, distant predators wading through the brush. Logan finally spoke. "If they're hunting you, they'll come back." She didn't deny it. "We can't stay here," he said. "No," she agreed. "But I know where we can go." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You've got a plan." "Not a plan. Place." A colony. Hidden. Not human. Not alien. Something in between. Sounds like hell. Sounds like home, she said. That word again. It struck him differently this time. He looked around, the fire, the trees, the traps he had laid and reset, the shelter he had built and rebuilt. This place had become familiar, but it was never home. She stood, held out her hand. You coming? He hesitated, then took it. The journey began at dawn.